You've just got 2 trades left to make in AFL Fantasy for 2025. How do you feel about that? You ready to see the year done and dusted? Or are you right now heading to get yourself a hat, getting that league victory, maybe even heading towards winning it all? Regardless, here at the Coaches Panel, our final AFL Fantasy Trade Target episode for season 2025. The 10 best trade-in options. We'll take positional need, the forced trades that maybe you've got to navigate, and just the guys that I think have undeniable matchups this week. You do not want to get away from them. So where are we going to start? A player I don't think I've put him in the trade targets for the better part of half a season. His ownership is so high, but I've just got to put it out there. My number one trade target, still a quarter of the competition don't have him. I know in the active parts of AFL Fantasy, it's going to be much, much less. But if you are not a Bailey Smith owner, this is the last chance to correct that. He will be midfield only eligible for us. He is absolutely a lights out pick this week coming up against Richmond. It is going to be outstanding. Yes, it's not cheap. Yes, almost everyone has him. But for the coach that's been going against it, don't run the gauntlet for one more week. This could get nasty. They've got Richmond. It's only 2 months since the Cats last played that football club. He didn't play in that game. He was coming off the back of the bye, given that extra time to freshen up. But in that last game, 7 Geelong players got the ton, including Atkins and Holmes through the midfield, Gryan, Miers coming up off the forward line. And also Zach Guthrie had an absolute knockout game. He's the number one because personally to me, if I was to try to project who I think is going to be the top scorer of the week, I think it's going to be Bailey Smith. He had to be my number one for that reason. And to go alongside that is we've just got this great reminder last week that under this Richmond ecosystem towards the end of the year, they just don't seem to give a stuff about applying any tag or any defensive-minded work at all through the midfield. Like we're coming off the back of a 186 for Harry Sheezel and a 162 for Luke Davies-Uniacke. The week prior, we're talking a 146 for Sinclair and a 133 for Marcus Windhager. And no shade on any of those players. Sheezel's probably the closest. But none of them are in the same level of conversation that Bailey Smith is from a fantasy prospect, let alone a genuine AFL outlier. It is just the week I do not want to go there. Of all the players this week in the AFL, I do not want you to be without. Bailey is the one. I know his ownership is so high that you're like, MJ, you've just shot the last number one trade target into a bullet that everybody's got. I know, but that's how critical I think it is. If you're one of the few that don't have him, this is not the week to go against. I feel this could get nasty real soon. Harry Sheezel level scoring territory nasty. And just ask anyone that went against him last week. Oh, it's not nice. Let's hit you on my number 2 trade target. Let's give you something unique and something under $1 million, shall we? My number 2 trade target is Noah Anderson. He's coming off the back of a 118 last week. Now, I know historically Port Adelaide is a team we try to avoid because they've not got a great scoring matchup, but the narrative has really shifted over the last couple of weeks. They are now the second best inside midfield matchup in the game over the last month, and they're giving up massive points. His last 2, Noah that is, games against Port Adelaide are still triple digits, a 104 and a 112, and they're in much tougher matchup situations than what this is for us. I like it for a couple of reasons. Number one, Port are gifting points at the moment. I know there's maybe a belief somewhere that Kenny Hinkley and Port Adelaide have one last shot to fire, and that might be the case. I'd rather back in Noah. That Gold Coast have a lot to play for in this game. And to say that Port Adelaide have pride to play for, they've had that for the last 6 weeks and done nothing with it. I know it's Kenny's last game, Bokey's last game, the Rad Atkins last game. To me, it's not going to change Noah's output as far as I'm concerned. I'm really comfortable to have him as a matchup. The tide has turned. I want in on this. And at 13% ownership across the format, a little bit more unique in other portions of the game, he does feel like he's the midfield matchup that could dish up a 120, 130 and do it on the more unique scale of things. So I like this matchup and I'm happy to put him maybe a little bit higher than the historical data trend might suggest. I'm backing in Noah Anderson. I'm backing in he and his team to respond well. And for the Port Adelaide scoring opportunity that we've seen develop over the last month to continue, he's my number 2 trade target. My number 3, let's go back to the Geelong. Well, you're going to see these boys a few times throughout this episode, but I just think it's a gravy matchup this week against Richmond. I've got Max Holmes as my number 3 trade target. The last time Max played them, just 2 months ago, he dished up a 122, and over the last 5 and 10 games, the best inside midfield matchup is Richmond. I just want every piece of this. They are gifting points. They don't have the players that can play that outside work rate role that a Baz and a Max Holmes could absolutely smash teams to pieces. Of his last 5 tons, they've all been 118 or above. So the narrative that existed early in the year that Max can get tons, but he can't get big ones, that's gone now. The matchup is amazing. The need for Geelong to push really hard. They can still finish on top of the ladder if the Crows stumble at the final hurdle. They'll still finish top 2. But for Geelong, it's critical to get a big win here, set themselves up for success. And I think Max is going to be a pretty significant piece of that. Yes, a vest could come, but that is the case for so many other players that have superstar players heading towards a final series. I think Max is going to be outstanding this week. Time to jump on. Again, still the fact he's under 50% ownership across the formats. Basically only 1 in 3 have him across the format is just wild. I know it's higher at the top end of the tree of ownership, but he's been an outstanding pick this year, and this is the week to get there. Let's triple down on this matchup. My number 4 trade target for you is Gryan Miers. Yeah, ahead of Jezza and ahead of any other Geelong midfielders or any other Geelong forwards. I really like Gryan. And I'm happy to tell you why he sits at 4 over those other guys. Well, number 1, the last time he played the Tigs, he got a 102. So solid. Absolutely solid. Also, Richmond are the number 2 matchup for general forwards at the moment. Now, he's getting up and around the ground, scoring like an inside mid and a wingman at times too. And again, they are still favourable for Geelong in this role. But I like Gryan because his scoring build over the year, but specifically those last 3 to 4 months, has been really diverse and ranging, that he doesn't just require goals. He doesn't just require tackles. He gets involved in all of the facets of the game. And if it trends the way I fully expect it to, Gryan for me is the safest Geelong forward outside of Bailey Smith this week. And when I mean safe, I mean this, that he won't hurt you with a crap basement score, and his ceiling is as good as all the other options that's sitting through that as well. In his last 4 games, his lowest score is 92. Just ask people that went to Jezza Cameron over the last couple of weeks. He had a really tough matchup on the round just gone against Sydney. I know on paper it was a little bit harder than, say, the Bombers matchup or North Melbourne. But here's the thing. Even with that being the case, Gryan still dishes up a 90-plus score in tough situational matchups. And that's why Gryan for me is there, because grand finals in leagues or final round for rankings, what hurts more? Missing a ceiling or getting stuck with a 60 or a 70 basement? You could argue both is the same, but for me, I'm looking for ceiling in players for sure, but I'm also looking to protect that I'm not getting stuck on a basement. Bit different in another format where you've got 23 on field and 1 drops out, Supercoach, Dream Team. Fantasy, I don't want to get stuck with a crappy basement, and I can see Gryan not dishing up a crappy basement score. Then my number 5 trade target this week, on the premise he comes back from concussion protocols, I've got to put him in because he's even more unique than he was a week ago. Brodie Grundy is my number 5 trade target. Over the last 5 rounds, there's only one player that's got a better average in AFL fantasy, and that is Harry Sheezel, who's coming off the back of a 180-plus score. So let's respect this. A 123 over the last 5. It's outstanding. This matchup is made for Brodie to explode in. They got the Eagles this week. They are the number 3 easiest matchup in the last 5 rounds for rucks, which is awesome. And these are some of the scores that rucks have dished up against the Eagles over the last couple of weeks. Tim English just dropped a 129. Riley O'Brien dropped a 103, and a quiet gain from Max Gawn was 113. Remember the last time Brodie had a really easy matchup, like one of the top 3 ruck matchups? was against the Bombers a fortnight ago, and he scored a 150. Now, he's super unique, super expensive, but super unique. If you're looking for that separation difference right now, you want to play the matchups. Yeah, I think Baz has got the most bankable way of getting an absolute monster game. And Anderson's great, and Holmes is good, and Gryan is great. But who could create that unique separation? Because I can't see a lot of coaches wanting to jump off an English matchup this week against the Dockers. It's not easy, but I can't see people wanting to jump off a Marshall matchup or even a Gawn matchup. But if you could make it work, maybe you already got these other players that I've got positioned ahead of me. You're like, you know what, MJ, I got some cash. I can throw a Tom McCarthy to the absolute wind, just get any depth playing D7 option. And all of a sudden, Sheasel moves around, move Baz around, Luke Jackson around. And ta-da! I need a premium ruck at 1.22 million. Head on in there, my friend. I think this could be outstanding and unbelievably unique given the way AFL Fantasy works for us. I want my share on that if I could afford it. Not cheap. This matchup could be massive. So they're my top 5. It's Bailey Smith, it's Noah Anderson. Then we keep the Geelong flavour rolling with Holmes and Miers, and then into Brodie Grundy. You know what? So if it's good 3 times, why not go for a 4th, right? Just ask the Brisbane Lions of the early 2000s how that goes for you. But I think this one's going to work out pretty nicely. Sean Manor is my number 6 trade target. Here's what he's done in his last 5 weeks. 144, 87, 94, 99, and just off the back of a 120 against the Sydney Swans. In the last 5 weeks, he is the best scoring forward premium in the game. Number 1 is Sean Manor. Now, the last time he played the Tigers, it was an 82. But again, what he's been doing over the last 5 or 6 weeks is really different to what it had been when he came into the squad after some early season injury problems. He's just a ripping pick, 930K, super unique. The attraction for everyone is still to pay up for Gryan or to go for the ceiling of Jezza, which I think both are very, very valid and viable. But maybe, and you're seeing a lot of forwards come through. Maybe you're looking to replace a Rankin this week, get off of Caleb Daniel. He's just not really knocking it lights out, trying to avoid a tough matchup that could potentially come the way. Sean's just as good as any of these guys over the last 5 weeks, if not the best over the last 5 weeks. So if you're looking for unique with a great matchup with some ceiling about him, again, a 120 and a 144 in the last 5, nothing under 87. So he's not hurting you on the floor of it either. I actually really like this pick. It wouldn't shock me to see a lot of teams that have kind of planned and traded their way to this final round that have a Baz, that have a Miers, that have a Manor, and that have a Jezza Cameron to wrap up the round. And I think that could be an outstanding way to end the year if all things go your way. I'm happy to put him as my number 6 trade target. Let's jump into number 7, and a guy that's been a little disappointing over the last 6 weeks. A lot of people paid a lot of money for him, like $1.1 million. With just the 1 ton in the last 6 weeks, but I do think it's about to turn. My number 7 trade target, Errol Gulden, is who I've got locked in. Pretty simple reason for why I'm happy to go there. The matchup is outstanding. He's got the West Coast Eagles, who in his last 2 times he's played against them, he's dished up a 127 and a 145. And they are still gifting a ton of points to opposition midfielders. They are 4th best matchup for our inside mids. And just look at what the likes of a Richards and a Bontempelli did last week against West Coast. I think it could be even better for them this week coming up against the Sydney Swans. On the lower end of ownership, in contrast to others, his form would have people probably not looking at him, but I'm all about the matchup and all about a player who's still got something to prove. And there are certain matchups that, are finals defining, either the Fremantle and the Western Bulldogs for illustrative points, even the Hawthorn, the Brisbane. Like, these are finals, top 8, top 4 shaping games. This has nothing to do with any of that. But there is something about what Sydney are trying to do, which is not only reestablish some pride, but is also to find some level of cohesion and synergy that they've lacked this year due to injuries. This could be the game that sets them and their preseason up for 2026. So I can see a player like Errol just absolutely gaslighting this one into an absolute 150 plus performance, and form people will avoid. People don't watch matchups as closely as they should because they go, oh, yeah, the matchup is great, but the form's not good, so I'm off. There's always narrative and reason for why a player does or doesn't perform well, and Errol's kind of still getting out of jail. And if anybody's going to get any attention from this Sydney team, first and foremost, wouldn't it be Isaac Heaney, the game winner at the moment? Probably would. Also don't see West Coast with anyone that could stay with him. So to me, yeah, Errol Gulden, my number 7 trade target. Let's hit number 8. He's been in and around the top 10 trade targets for the better part of the month, and it would be absolutely criminal of me to not put him in the week that people were waiting for. But my number 8 trade target is Jeremy Cameron. If you've got him anywhere over the last month, you've got, up until the Sydney game, a pretty good return. But this was why you got him, because you saw the matchup, you saw the hunt for the 100, and you're like, I want in on this. The last time he played the Tigs in round 17, he got a 115. They are, the Tigers, top 4 for key position forwards to score against. And now, with a Nick Vlaston likely to miss due to that ankle injury, I think it's almost certain to miss. Well, that extra bit of experience and intercepting and play reading, well, that defensive line's got just that little bit weaker. And so while the hunt for the 100 during the home and away has taken a little bit of a hit with him now stuck at 79 goals, I could still see an 8 to 10 goal performance out of Jeremy in this one, which not only means a 120 plus score, but and with an outstanding finals, we could still get 100 goals from Jeremy Cameron this year. Still cheap under 900K. It is the matchup that under that price point, I think a lot of coaches are nervous to go against because getting into Baz is hard and, again, highly owned. Getting into Brodie Grundy is ideal, but really hard to pull that off financially. You should be able to get under a 900,000. And the matchup is great. The ceiling is good. You still feel like Geelong, while victory is almost guaranteed, will still try to fuel a little bit more of the ball through him in this game. Yeah, it's a matchup I'd be nervous against. If I was in a league grand final and I'm heading into the weekend, it's like they've got Jezza and I don't. Yeesh, this don't feel comfortable, that is for sure. Happy to put him there. I still think there's some other better cat forwards that have higher basement than what Jeremy has and comparable ceiling and aren't as goal dependent to score well. But yeah, I still love my hands on Jeremy Cameron. Let's give you one more big, wild, unique. And again, staying in the forward line, again, a lot of people looking to replace an Isaac Rankin, deal with an underperforming Caleb Daniel, or just try something different because they're not happy to make any other moves. And then I'll just give you one more neutralizer right at the end of my number 10. But my number 10 trade target, you probably have anyway based on ownership, but I had to put him there. My number 9, let's set the world on fire with this one. Number 9 trade target is Harry Mackay. There's a couple of reasons why I like this, but let's talk you through it for why he sits there. Number 1, he's coming off the back of a 122 last week against Port Adelaide. He was outstanding. He was exceptional. His lead-up work, his conversion in front of goals, that contested marking, the work rate, everything looked exceptional. That's always a good sign with Harry. These are the key markers that we need to be looking for. It's not just a one and done good game from an opposing and a favourable matchup, which he does have this week. But the 2 weeks prior, he still went 74 and 90 and not as easier matchups on DVP and on fixture analysis. So that's good. Let's dig into a little bit more why I like it. Number 1, he's under 800,000. So if you're managing your salary cap and trying to maximize on-field performance out of a Rankin or a Daniel, using those as illustrative points, not the only 2 guys you should consider moving off of, is it gives you something that's still attainable and affordable to go and get an Anderson, to consider a Smith if you're in that unique spot, a Miers, a Grundy, whoever and however it is, you still can make that move and probably out of those guys still make it financially justifiable. So I like it for a couple of reasons. 1, the financial aspects is it's really attainable. Number 2, the fixture this week is awesome. The Bombers and the number 2 team over the last 5 weeks for key position forwards and inside the top 4 over the last 10 weeks. So it's not just recency fixture bias. It's what they've been doing over the better part of the season. Number 2, Jeremy Cameron played him just a couple of weeks ago and he got a ton. Last week, the Saints, Sharman got a 93. No disrespect to Sharman. He does not have the pedigree as a footballer that a Harry Mackay has. So that's a good sign. I like him because there's possible ceiling. He's unique. Just 1% of coaches across the format own him right now. And he sets this incredible, powerful early message. Should you want to send one early in the round to opposition coaches with that Thursday night game, you can absolutely put the fear into opposition coaches, whether it's league or rankings overall with him. And the good news is, with an early round matchup, you can actually look to leverage him as a seventh forward and loop him on field should you need. Maybe you're like, I'm really happy with my forwards, MJ. I'm not really looking for it, but I'm looking for a guy that's under 800K that could absolutely drop a massive game. Well, Harry, to me, is the guy that's got the matchup. He's got the ceiling. A 120, 130 plus performance could absolutely come his way. And to then be able to loop him and then manage other matchups, use DPP, put a Sheasel or a Josh Daicos or a Sinclair or a Bailey Smith or a Matt Kennedy or however it is through and out of your midfields, at Jackson, in and out of your forward line. You can get really creative. So you might not be directly addressing something on field, but maybe you're just like, I need something unique, I need something cheap, and I need something that I'm happy to have a throw at the stumps to really give me an absolute massive crack to start the round. I think this is as good as it's going to get for you. All the boxes you want ticked are here for you in Harry, and I'm pretty happy to suggest him as probably the last wild trade target for the year. And then my number 10, we're starting with a safely owned guy in Bailey Smith. I'm going to wrap it up with another highly owned player. But again, this is purely about mitigating risk in your AFL fantasy side. If it's based on ownership and it's based on matchup, who would I like to protect against hurting me? No, it's not Harry Sheasel. Last week was the week to get him. It's not a great matchup for him this week if the Crows bring the heat, which they have often done this year. The guy I've got at number 10 is Nick Daicos. Last week, he dished up a 106 in the wet against the third hardest inside midfield matchup in the game right now, that being the team I just mentioned, the Adelaide Crows. This week, he does have Melbourne, who tagged him earlier this year to an 83. So not great, but history would suggest that caretaker coaches do not tag, both on current trends of what Chaplin is doing, but just historical trends is they're putting their best foot forward to show they're trying to win a game of football. And while you might think shutting down a Daicos is the best pathway forward, often it's their chance to be on Broadway and showcase what they can do. And I think that's what we're going to see. So the reason I like this is twofold. Number one is it does what and why I was suggesting Harry Sheasel last week is it's cancelling out the guy that's got a good matchup that's highly owned that in a league or a ranking sense you don't have. And it could be the one that takes things away from you with a 150 plus score. We've seen some big 130, 140, 150, 160s out of Nick Daicos just in the last couple of months alone. So this is like what Harry Sheasel was last week. Now, maybe it won't get to 180, but it's got all the makings of a massive ceiling game here. The other thing is he's got good historical pedigree against this team. Again, the Langdon game and the last time Melbourne played was a Simon Goodwin masterpiece, but I'm going to call it an aberration. The last time he played Melbourne before that was in round 24 last year, where he dished up a 157. Yeah, it's pretty handy. Now, I know it's not negative coaching, it's mitigating risk sort of coaching. But if you're happy in your matchup or you look across the rest of the ownership percentages on the top 100 or the top 1,000 and you go, no, I'm pretty happy. I've got the right uniques, but who could hurt me that I don't have? Nick might just be the guy that you go, you know what? This is where I can protect my team and trust my uniques, whether it be a Manor, whether it be an Anderson, whether it be a Miers or even a Brodie Grundy. These uniques are the ones that are going to get me to the promised land, and this is the one that I need to protect against. And that's a perfectly viable coaching strategy. I think he's a good pick. He's been a great player. I think it's handy enough. So that's it. That wraps up our AFL Fantasy top 10 trade targets for the year. The rule is if I picked any player in the top 10 that you are trading into, you have to like this video. You can't hate me. It's the terms and conditions of YouTube, my friend. Make sure you do that. If you're watching this video or any video throughout the season or pre-season of 2025 and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please, friend, make sure you do so. It's a small thing for you, but it makes a big impact for us. I would so greatly appreciate you doing that. Later on in the round, we've got our final strategy session to help you through those last-minute matchups and strategy calls. We've got a super coach version of this video to land as well. And a ton of stuff is still to come for you this off-season. Make sure you stick around, have your notifications on. There's still at least 30, 40, 50 videos to come from us before the start of the 2026 preseason. A lot of content that is actually going to be really future focused and going to help you with 2026. So you don't have to think it's all nasal gazing, introspective. You want to forget the year. None of that. It's all about helping you future focused. We've got that coming for you here on the channel. Subscribe. Make sure you do that. Comment below. I do want to know though, what are the trades you're making this week? I'd love to see the final 2 trades and let me know your ranking while you're at it as well. And if you're happy with your outcome for 2025. Hey, thanks so much for watching not only this video, but the hundreds that we've given you this season. We do hope that here at the Coaches Panel, we've been able to serve you well. And we can't wait to be back talking with you about your AFL fantasy side again real soon.